begin. So, good evening to everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Can you all hear me at the back? Great. Okay, if I can just ask you to turn your cell phones onto silent or off, even better, because I know you're popular people and everybody wants to speak to you. Okay. Right, so Lisa is there. Margot, won't you ask the person on your left to move one foot to the left so I can just see her face? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I want to be able to see your face. I want to check and see if I'm boring you. Or if you go to sleep or something, you know? Alright. So, Jane, won't you just close the door, please? Thank you. Cool. So this looks like it's a popular topic, right? Making your mind your best friend. So I'm assuming that your mind gives you some hassles. The mind harasses us, doesn't it? So you probably find that when we talk about this thing called mind, tonight I'm just going to clarify because there are quite a few of you who are here for the first time, which is great. Welcome. Thank you. So we talk about this thing called mind, but it's good firstly before we talk about making our mind into our best friend what we consider to be the mind. Okay? It is that facet or aspect of consciousness within ourselves that is constantly creating and churning out thoughts. Okay? Within our internal consciousness, we have two main faculties. In Raja Yoga meditation, we call one the mind, which is that which is constantly creating thoughts. It also houses feelings, and it contains desires and motivations. Now, the interesting thing about the mind is that it also receives everything that comes from the external world. It comes into the mind, and also everything that comes from your subconscious mind and your unconscious mind is also flowing into the mind. So from that point of view, that's important to understand that there is no evaluation that is going on with this thing called mind. The mind does not evaluate anything. Sorry, I just wanted to mention, because I'm recording this, I will start right on 8:30 and then we can take questions or people can add comments or whatever. But just for the sake of our recording, if it's okay, that I just give my presentation and after that we can discuss. Okay? So this understanding that the mind is this thing that is constantly churning our thought. And it churns our thought. Won't you just switch the incense off? I think it's disturbing the labor.
No, it's really not. I just had it to go in my throat. I love you.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the mind is constantly churning out and sometimes spitting out and trickling out thoughts. And we become aware of those thoughts with our conscious awareness, which is a faculty that we call in Raja Yoga the intellect. That has got nothing to do with being clever or not. Often when we talk about intellectual, we think that that which is the intellect is that which is clever. Okay, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about that aspect or that facet of consciousness that is educable. In other words, that facet of our inner being that is able to be educated. It is that which forms, the intellect is formed by our early childhood experiences. All of you can check inside now. Is your intellect dominated by your mother or your father? Because you'll find that it was probably one of them. If not, your mother or your father, perhaps a teacher or a significant person. The quality of our intellect is determined by the quality of the person who had the most influence over us in our early childhood. And then after that, teachers, gurus, friends, especially parents get very upset when their children stop listening to them and they listen to their friends. So the intellect is that which is educable or trainable. It is that faculty that absorbs new information and is that faculty that can assess and judge and evaluate what is going on in the world. So a person who has no intellect effectively is functioning like an animal in society, because an animal, no negativity about animals. This is not a negative comment about animals, but people do use this about people. They say that they become like animals because they have no reasoning, judgment, or ability to assess situations. And they function directly from their instinctive or their subconscious or their unconscious triggers. Yeah, that's what an animal does, right? An animal gets afraid and it will either fight or it will run away. Okay? So that is an animal that has instincts, and those instincts are in their subconscious, in their unconscious. It forms their total nature. Now, we are like animals in that sense as well, because we also have many tendencies that are recorded within us. And this is based on everything that we have ever experienced that is living in our subconscious and unconscious minds. Okay, they are one, but they are that which is below the surface. And this is what is actually feeding thoughts into the mind. The subconscious and the unconscious mind are feeding thoughts into the mind. And that which we consider to be ourselves, that which we consider to be that rational self, the self that can assess and the self that can understand, is that which is we call the intellect. Okay, so you very clearly understand now. Nicole, you're far too tall to sit right in front. You're going to have to go to the back. Yeah, because I cannot see anyone behind you. There we go. That's fine. Take Jean's place. It's fine. Take a seat. Hello. Welcome. Yes, please. Yeah, sorry. Yes, front and center. Sorry, the late people get put in the front, not at the back. No, we'll leave that for later. So we're just describing, hi, take a seat, hello. So we're just describing how it is that the mind functions, okay? So I've just described to you how it is that the mind is influenced by the subconscious and the unconscious mind, and it's also influenced by the world. So all of the thoughts that the mind is churning out all the time, all of these thoughts are coming either from within us or from outside of us. Okay? Or actually the thoughts don't come from outside of us, but what we see through the eyes, what we hear through the ears, what we taste through the mouth, what we perceive through all of our sense organs is what we think about. And so this is why at this juncture, this room is packed, because all of you are feeling really harassed by your minds. Am I right? Because out in the world, out there, there is a lot going on. Am I right? And it is all coming into your mind through your sense organs. I want you to think about the world. Okay, Duma, where do your people come from originally?
What do you mean?
A Transkei or Ciskei, or are you a Sotho? KwaZulu-Natal. Okay, think about the quality of their life and existence 300 years ago. What was their life like 300 years ago?
Maybe nice and relaxed.
They were quite relaxed. Yeah. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have cars. They didn't have television. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have television. They didn't have radio. So we are very fortunate. We live in a society where we have a lot of these amazingly wonderful, we have technology. Technology has revolutionized our existence. It has given us so much, but it's also driving us crazy. Am I right? Think about it. Because, I mean, even just the fact that that telephone rang now. Yeah? Can you ignore a ringing telephone? Can you ignore the doorbell? Whenever there is a stimuli from outside, it triggers. Thoughts inside. Oh, there's the bell. Oh, there's the telephone. I need to answer it. Who can it be? Oh my word, what's going on? It's the middle of the night. Before you've even answered the phone and that phone is ringing, your mind has thrown up at least 10 to 15 to 20 thoughts. Why am I being called? It's the middle of the night. What's happening? Did someone die? Oh my word, I'm afraid. And you get these thoughts and you get these feelings. The mind is so fussed. You haven't even picked up the phone yet. And you've had 15 to 20 thoughts about the fact that the phone is ringing. So the mind is overstimulated. This is why the mind is our enemy. Because it is throwing up too many thoughts. And because we're living in a society where things are extremely busy, we are having so many thoughts. Psychologists say that you have between 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Can you remember your 70,000 thoughts of today? No. You can't probably even remember what you thought about last hour, never mind what all of the thoughts of today. And yet, the way in which you feel in this moment is the sum total of all of the thoughts that you experienced today. How you feel in this moment is a reflection of your consciousness, of what you did with your mind today. And so this is the powerful thing about why it is that we have to try and make our minds our best friends. Okay, now you understand what mind is. Everybody got it? What the mind is? That the mind is a thought machine. It is churning out thoughts all the time. We've now understood where the thoughts are coming from. They are either triggered by external events or they are triggered about by subconscious events. I haven't even spoken about those yet. You can't remember what you did last year this time. Oh, of course you can because Facebook reminds you. But you cannot remember what you did, like say 4 months ago because it's stored in your memory, but it's all recorded inside of you. There's a reason why it's recorded and we can't recall it is because if we had all of our memories of absolutely everything that we've ever done, said, thought, experienced, and gone through, we would go mad. If all of that flooded our conscious mind all the time, we wouldn't know how to function. That's why it's subconscious and unconscious, but it is still influencing us. How? Through the kinds of thoughts that are being thrown up in the mind and being triggered by other things that we see or hear. Have you ever had a situation where you've had a non-stop argument with a particular person that just took a different form every time. You ever had that? Patterns of relating to people? Those of you who have children, those of you who have husbands or wives, you know that quite a lot of your interactions are based on patterns. And you say, why are we going here again? You know, when you get into that rut or that groove. And that's because you have recorded a certain set of principles or values, or you've recorded a certain way of interacting. Your interacting is not based on the freshness of the moment. It is based on the past. And where's that past coming from? It is coming from your subconscious mind. And it might be some negative thing that is within you. It might be stubbornness that the person is responding to. It might be the ego of the person, the egotism of the person that you are responding to. It might be there's a form of selfishness. It might be anger. And all of that is stored inside the subconscious mind. But it's triggered, it's catalyzed by something that comes up. And then you do the same dance. Yeah? You dance that dance. Yeah? You say one thing, they say one thing, you say the next thing, they say the next thing, and it follows a pattern. Okay? It can be a sad pattern. Right? The only thing that changes that pattern is if one person changes, like we're in a dance. In a dance, because it's a dance, everybody knows their steps. It's the same with your arguments with this person. You know your steps. If you change your steps, then the pattern will change. And the only thing that allows our steps to change is when we have educated our intellect to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to interact with this person on this level. When this dance starts happening, I'm going to say different things or I'm going to keep quiet. And then that will change it. Can you put it on silent for me? Thanks. So this is this thing called mind. The mind that harasses us. That's why I didn't say it was your enemy, but definitely in this room, I've had many talks in this room. It's never been as packed as tonight. So it's definitely this thing called mind. You want to understand it. You want to know how to make your mind your best friend. So we've understood now what the mind is. Anybody want me to clarify that? Is it clear to you what the mind is? It's this machine that is creating thoughts. It's picking up feelings. It's creating feelings. It has motivations. And it's all coming either from the external world or it is coming from my own inner world, my subconscious and unconscious mind. And unfortunately, a lot of it is old stuff. We have habitual thinking patterns. We think in grooves and ruts. And the more we think in that way, and the more we believe in those thoughts, because the intellect is that which houses the belief system, the more we believe in those thoughts, the deeper the ruts and the grooves go. Which means it's harder to break into habitual ways of thinking, patterns of thinking. This is why if you've ever gone to a psychologist, you'll know that the psychologist will make you aware that your thinking is actually functioning on the basis of certain patterns. And those patterns were probably formed when you were very young still, when the mind was deeply impressionable. Because we are very impressionable until the age of 7. After the age of 7, our intellect has developed. And we start to make our own decisions. One of my friends sent me a message. I don't work with young children anymore, but I was a Montessori preschool teacher. Well, I suppose I am still, but I'm not working with those young children. But I know young children very well. Anyway, she sent me a message. My daughter, she's 8, my daughter keeps on challenging me. What's going on? I said to her, your daughter's intellect has just formed now. She's trying out her new decision making on you. The intellect is fully formed. So she's now testing. Is my intellect the same as my mother's? So she said, well, what must I do? I said, you must really congratulate her. She has her own opinion. It's wonderful. She's no longer doing exactly what you want anymore. You've now moved into a new era. The child's intellect is fully formed. She wants to now start making her own decisions. So I said, lose some battles, but win the war. Yeah, sometimes let her make her own decisions. The intellect is formed. She can. Let her make informed decisions, narrow decisions. No longer now, 2 options, but make them 3 options so she can weigh up. Use her intellect. So these are the 3 faculties, and it's important that you understand these 3 because I'm now going to teach you how to train your mind to become your best friend. So that you can enjoy the relationship that exists between you and your mind, because you are not your mind. The conscious, self-aware part of your being is that conscious witness state. Your conscious self-awareness, which you name as the I, the conscious self-awareness which you consider to be yourself, that is the intellect. That is the watcher. That is how you identify yourself as a person. And you are subjected to your thinking all the time as the witness. And you're also involved with the mind, and you are also influenced by the mind. Yeah? So we've understood what the mind is. Now I want to just, with all of you, let's just get some feeling of. We say we want to make the mind our best friend. So now what does a best friend do? What does making your mind your best friend? What does a best friend mean to you? What does a best friend do? Give me some thoughts. I want to. Your best friend supports. The best friend supports you. Yes. What else does the best friend do? It listens to you. Yes. Yeah, because when you tell them something, they listen. Okay, what else does the best friend do?
It tells you what you want to hear.
It tells you what you want to hear. Yes. Sometimes it tells you what you don't want to hear too. Yes. Because that's what best friends are for. They've got to tell you when you're stepping out of, when you're moving towards delusion. Yes, and non-reality. Yes, they tell you what. Yes, they support it. They help you. Yeah, the best friend helps you. What else does the best friend do for you? Gives advice. Yes. What else does the best friend do? You love your best friend? Uplifts you. Loves you. Yes. Donita? Did you say something? No? Someone said something. Cares for you. Yeah. And the best friend gives you time. The best friend spends time with you. The best friend and you are best friends because you get along the best out of everyone that you know. Right? That's your best friend. The person who understands you. The person who supports you. The person who loves you. The person who will go the extra mile for you. The person who is there for you through thick and thin. The person who does not abandon you. Your best friend is everything to you. So this is the role that we now want to give to our mind. And it's quite clear that our mind is patently unworthy of this position. Am I right? Because why? Because at the moment, your mind is controlling you. If your best friend controlled you all the time, you wouldn't actually feel that loving towards them. No. Because we don't like being controlled by people. It's the one thing that the soul really and the ego rejects. We rebel against being controlled. It's probably the biggest defect in interpersonal relationships, and yet people still try. Doesn't work. Can we control anybody? We can't control anyone. We can influence, we can inspire, we can suggest. And so this is what we now have to do with the mind. Because if your mind is controlling you and you are being harassed by your mind, if your mind is churning out too many thoughts, the first thing I have to do is I have to tell my mind, whoa, slow down, my friend. And we can do that. Consciously, we have the ability to slow the mind down. And that is actually one of the first things that we do in meditation. After we have relaxed, we actually consciously slow the mind down. This is why in meditation you are encouraged to meditate sitting still. Reason being that you can only regain control of the mind if the body is at rest. Because it's hard enough controlling the body, never mind controlling the mind. The body is something the intellect has to control. Yeah, how you're sitting in this moment, yes, a lot of your body is doing things, but whether you have, your arms folded or your legs folded, that is the choice that you have made. There are many things you cannot control. If we did, then many, many 2-year-olds would be dead now because they try to control their parents by holding their breath. Have you ever seen that? Some of you probably had your children do that to you. That they decided they're going to hold their breaths. Yeah. Wonderful thing is that when it is that the brain needs oxygen, it makes them pass out and then they start breathing. So you actually can say that's fine. Hold your breath, it's okay, because the child will pass out when they need to. But of course, they are trying to control you by holding their breath. Yeah, so I don't know how many parents make it to the fainting stage. But certainly that's a brave parent. Yes. Okay, so the mind controls us. So we have to control, firstly, we make the body sit still. This is the first thing we do. We allow the body to become still, and then we start allowing the mind to slow down. We consciously slow the mind down with our conscious self-awareness. And the method or the technique by which we do this is we step back from the mind. Now, in order to step back from the mind, to discover the intellect, to discover the witness state, we have to be sitting quietly. So this is why initially a meditation is recommended for this process. Eventually, when you become skilled in this process, you can do it all the time. And you are doing it. You do it. You do step back from the mind. You do actually make sure that you're not totally influenced all the time, because if you always acted on everything that your mind did all the time, we would have total anarchy in society. Yeah, we see something in a shop and then, if the mind said, oh, that's nice, I want to eat it, and then you did eat it, this is what 3-year-olds do in stores, then you do eat it, then, we would have pandemonium, right? So your intellect is functioning and working a lot of the time to control the mind, that you don't act out on every single impulse that happens internally. You're doing that already. Why? Because when you were a child and you were walking around in the supermarket and you saw the donut, your mother told you, you can't just pick that up and eat that. We haven't paid for it yet. And just because you want to eat something, you can't just eat something just because you see it and it looks good. Yeah? So this process of actually controlling the mind is happening inside. But for us, the reason why it is that the mind is controlling us is because the rate at which it is churning our thoughts is making us work very hard. The intellect has to be assessing all the time what the mind is doing. And if the mind is dominating our awareness with negativity, then the mind has to work very hard. The intellect has to work very hard. And the fact that the intellect has to work very hard sometimes makes it tired. And so what is going to change? What is the game changer in this process is that the intellect makes a decision and a choice. Look here, mind, you know what? You're not going to tell me what to do anymore. I'm now going to tell you what to do. I am going to educate you. And for that, the intellect itself has to be educated too. Because the intellect allows that which is true and that which is false to move through the mind and to come through its conscious self-awareness and to be reinforced based on belief system. So in fact, the problem with the mind is not in the mind, but it is in the intellect. The intellect may believe that it is right, say for instance, the intellect may believe that men are superior to women. Is that true? No. That is a prejudice. It may be true of some men, and it may be true of some women, but it is not a generalized truth. If that is a generalized truth that I hold in my belief system, I am given a label, which means that I am sexist. Correct? Mm-hmm. The other erroneous belief system, we're all trying to get rid of that as well, is that white people are superior to black people. Is that true? No. It may be true that some white people are superior to some black people and some black people are superior to some white people, but it is not a general rule. Yeah? We're still working with getting that out of people's awareness. Am I right? Mm-hmm. We're actually facing globally that problem. It's an untrue belief. There are so many wrong beliefs that we have, those generalized social ones, and also what you believe about yourself inside. It may be, I'm no good, or I'm useless. It may be, oh, I'm fantastic, I'm great. Yeah? Based on something that you have either done in the past at some stage. And all of those belief systems, all of those thoughts that we hold about ourselves, they're all false. Because we are all good and we are all bad. Why? Because we are human beings. Human beings have a wide range, a huge capacity to do an enormous amount of good and a huge capacity to do an enormous amount of harm. That is the human state. No one sitting in this room is perfect. Thankfully. None of us are perfect. We are all human. And we have within us the capacity to do enormous good and the capacity to do enormous harm. Now, when I start to have this awareness about my humanness, that I have this wide range from being completely pure to being completely impure, that brings about, and I think for some of us it may be a new feeling, but it brings about a feeling of humility, humbleness. That I, as a being, I have a huge capacity to do good. And I have an equally huge capacity to do wrong. And it is within my hands as to what I express and what I don't. And that is the task of the intellect. And the way that the intellect will know what is within you is what comes into the mind. All of us sitting in this room, we all have faults. We all have weaknesses. There are things that we are ashamed of. There are things of which we feel, or about which we feel enormously guilty. Yes? It's touchy, isn't it? You're all looking a bit shifty now. It's tricky. We all have the dark side. And these are our negative, what we call our negative samskaras. But now here comes the good news, because you always got to have good news, because I gave you the bad news first. Here comes the good news, is that our dark side is actually conditioned into us. It's part of being human. Our dark side is as a result of us being in contact with others who have a dark side. And our original self, the true self, that which endures. This is often what in religion they call the soul itself. They say that that is the part that is untouched and pure, that is beautiful, that houses truth, that has peace, that has love, that is able to be blissful. That is our pure self. That is our true self. And so why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because you, in order to start experiencing it, you, in order to stop your mind from throwing up negative thoughts all the time, which are based on your dark self, they come from the dark self, because you have to believe this in order to make your mind your best friend. You have to believe that you are good. And you have to start working internally to manifest that, because it is actually recorded inside of you. It is your true state. It is that which we actually aim to emerge in the meditative state. Ask anybody when they come here, they want to learn meditation. Ask anyone. You ask them, what do you want for meditation? 90% of people say peace. Some say peace of mind, but they want peace. Peace is our original state. So we want what we have already got. So why aren't we experiencing our own inner peace? The reason is because we have a whole pile of other kinds of thoughts and wrong belief systems that are completely obscuring. It's a bit like, when there's an eclipse. It is throwing a shadow onto our true self. And so we are believing in the darkness because that is what we see. Ultimately, our opinion about ourselves, or our attitude towards ourselves, our self-esteem, is based on wrong belief. How we think about ourselves and who and what we believe we are. We are not our weaknesses. We are not our mistakes. We are not our faults. The energy of the soul, the original state of the soul, is so pure, so beautiful. But because we have lost touch with it, we don't believe in it anymore, which is why we don't believe in ourselves anymore. And then when our habits get the better of us, and we all here have habits. Some of us have habits that are so crippling that they threaten our very existence. There's some people, I know people who have cancer. They have asthma. They can scarcely breathe and they still smoke. And you ask them, why? Why are you doing this? You're killing yourself. But it is such a deeply entrenched habit. And because the thinking has not shifted inside, because the intellect does not, actually there's what they call in psychology, they call this cognitive dissonance. When it is that the person knows something, but their actions contradict that which they know. And then there's this internal disturbance. But I know I shouldn't do that. A father may love his child, but he may still beat the child in anger. He knows it's wrong, but he does it still. So he does one of two things. When he beats the child in anger, he does one of two things. He either justifies his actions where he says, and he may beat the child and hurt the child. There's nothing wrong with disciplining children. But if you do it in anger, that is wrong, because you are dumping your negative emotion onto the child. To discipline the child, you have to discipline the child with love. But it might be that you are actually disciplining them. You are causing them pain. But you are doing it out of a motivated, a positive emotion. That is the thing that is driving or motivating your action. You are taking their cell phone away. You are taking a privilege away from them so that they can understand that what they did was wrong and they have to face the consequences of their wrongdoing. That is different. But when a father hits his child in anger or mother hits the child in anger and they know that it is wrong and they do it anyway, they will then do one of two things. They will either justify their actions by saying, actually, you deserve that. They'll say to the child, you deserve that. Or they will change their thoughts about what they did. No, the Bible says they will find something to justify what they did. The Bible says, I am spare the rod and spoil the child. They will find some belief system to support the action. Okay? So it's very complicated how this whole process works. And that is why when you say you want to make your mind your best friend, I'm going to ask you now, how do you feel about yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you appreciate yourself? Normally, we only develop respect for ourselves on the basis of what we do. And that is completely wrong. We cannot respect ourselves on the basis of our doing because we are not human doings. We are human beings. And so the true self, the spiritual self that we have to start feeling, because we want our mind to start being influenced by the true self so that the mind can create thoughts based on peace. The mind can create thoughts based on love. The mind can create thoughts based on true strength. The mind can create thoughts based on happiness. For that, we have to change our belief about ourselves. We have to say, who and what I am is intrinsically good. Because most of us here have been conditioned. It's even recorded in religion that most of us we are trained to believe that we are intrinsically bad. Yes? Father John is nodding his head. He knows because he was a Catholic priest. So that is a whole nother topic, which we will not go into now. But next week, perhaps what we can do is we can talk about how to love the self. How do I truly, and somebody asked me also, how do I truly love myself? And we can go into the detail of that because the mind is creating thoughts based on what is in the subconscious. And what is in our subconscious is a whole lot of memory. And the process of meditation means that we have to clean our subconscious. In Sanskrit, they call it the chit. Chit, actually. Chit. Chit is that which is constantly being recorded inside on the basis of what I experience and what I go through in life. And so that cleaning. So in meditation, I clean my chit. I clean what comes up. So when you're sitting down and you're meditating, it's like you clean your thinking. You watch your thoughts. And then you allow your intellect, that conscious self, the aware self, to actually say, this is true, this is not. And you sift and you sort. And you sift and you sort. And you sift and you sort until you have actually sifted and sorted out all of those wrong beliefs. Because the belief system is in the intellect, but the actual stored energy about the self is in the subconscious mind. And when you sift and you sort that, when your intellect is now, it's trained, it believes, I am not bad, I am good. I am not impure, I am pure. I am not useless, I am useful. I am not a purposeless being, I have a purpose for being here. When your intellect has become divinized and spiritualized with the correct knowledge about what life is all about, that is when you can start cleaning up the internal mind. Because it is the divine mind, the divine intellect that enables and feeds the mind. It enables the mind to go deep into the unconscious and to unlock those treasures that live inside. Our inner peace, our divine love, our pure self. It's deep inside, buried under a whole lot of junk. So this is why meditation is hard, because the meditative process is the sifting and the sorting of that which is surfacing up into the mind. And so when the intellect has been educated and it says, I'm not bad, I as a soul, my original state is pure, my original state is peaceful, then when those thoughts come up in the mind, the intellect speaks to the mind, and this is when they become the best friends, because the intellect says to the mind, this, what you're thinking, my friend, is wrong. It's a wrong thought. You're not bad, you're good. I know you are, because God don't make no junk. Whatever you want to use to convince your mind, because you now have to start this inner dialogue with the mind, and sift and sort out that which is true. And we're talking about truth now on a spiritual level. Truth is that which endures. All of our weaknesses and negative things that are recorded within us, it will not endure. The true self endures, because at death, when the soul leaves the body and it moves on, that which is pure and beautiful and true will move on. The detail of your life, who you are, the biography, your date of birth, your gender, your race, your religion, all of your education. Yeah? When we're born, we don't get a BA at birth. I think people these days wish that they would, because they don't want to work hard for the education. Yeah? You don't get a BA at birth. All of your education, it all finishes. Everything finishes. And the essential self remains. Together with the habits, the character traits, the experiences, the talents, that's what goes with you. So when we die, what we leave with is nothing physical. We know that. This is why Alexander the Great, when he was buried, he said, please put my hands through the coffin to show everyone that when I leave this world, I leave with nothing in my hands. I don't know if it's a myth or what, but anyway, perhaps it is true. Maybe that is why he was known as Alexander the Great. Though I think he did terrorize quite a lot of people. I have an idea he did that. Yes. What we take with us is we take our innermost being when we leave. And so that's why to start this process, so your process of making your mind your best friend means that the two of you have to gang up. You know how they say two's company and three's a crowd? The two of you have to gang up against your sanskaras, your subconscious and your unconscious mind. And you have to become very skilled in what it is that you allow to be considered or recorded in you as true. So the intellect will assess every single thought. It's a bit like the quality controller. In the beginning, it's like the quality controller in the factory marching around. Okay? But we know that quality controller in the factory that's marching around and throwing her weight around or his weight around, nobody likes it. And we want the mind to be our best friend. So guess what? The quality of our intellect has to be loving. It has to be patient. It has to be kind. It has to be wise. It has to be sweet. It has to be determined. It has to be persistent. It has to be strong. It has to be firm, but it has to be lovely. The intellect must not be harsh, because if it is, you know what the mind does? It says, you know what? And then it teams up with the subconscious mind again. It says, you're not my best friend anymore. Now I'm going back to my old best friend. And then it will harass you with a lot of negative thinking. It'll throw up a lot of junk. So this is why you've got to keep the mind your best friend. And you only do that through love. No, mind, don't think that. Think this. It's kinder. You've got to give a reason too, because it's like that 3-year-old that's in front of you, and you're telling that 3-year-old you can't eat the donut. They want a reason. You have to convince the mind. It's not good to eat a donut now, my love, because you need to go and eat your supper soon, and it will ruin your appetite. No, but why can't I have a donut for supper? That's what the 5-year-old will say. That the 3-year-old will think, oh my word, that is true. And the parent is telling you. But the 5-year-old will say, well, why can't I just have a donut for supper? I don't know if these 3-year-olds these days, maybe they are coming up with these clever repartees. Yeah, so then the intellect has to think up another thing. The reason why it's not a good idea to eat a donut for supper is because it's empty calories. There are no minerals and vitamins in a donut. There's sugar, and there's wheat, and there's fat, which your tongue loves because it dances when it eats it, but it is not going to nourish your body. And if it is that you eat a donut for supper, you will also be awake until 11 o'clock at night because it's too many carbohydrates for so late at night. So all of these good reasons. Can you see how deeply it's connected to knowledge? And you have to persuade the mind with your higher knowledge. It has to be blinded by science. Where it says, yes, it bows down. And it bows down and it obeys, not because it's afraid. It bows down and obeys, not because you're being forceful. It bows down and it obeys, not because of any other reason except that it feels the love that you have for it. That it has your best interest at heart. And this is how we make our minds our best friends. We learn to love it, like a mother will love the naughtiest child, or like a dog owner will love the most difficult dog, the one that goes charging off when you go take them for a walk and then they won't come back when you call them. You know that trick, eh? How you get the dog to come back to you. That's right. Leisha's a very seasoned fur lover. Yes? She loves her fur alive. Hey, Leisha. Yes, she loves living fur. Yes. You walk the other way. Because then it realizes, oh my word, she's leaving without me. Never run after a dog. They just run faster than you. They will outrun you. You walk the other way. Because the dog is dependent on you for that meal. The mind is dependent on you too. It will follow you. But you have to manage it with love. Okay, so we're going to do that now. I'm going to teach you a skill because maybe some of you, I will never see you again. So I must teach you this skill so that you can use it, so you can make your mind your best friend. Okay, so I'd like you to sit comfortably. Put your feet flat on the floor if you can. Alasia, this lady needs a cushion. Will you get one for her?
Thank you.
She was our mommy this evening. She gave everyone a little cushion. So sweet. Because you're more comfortable when your feet are flat on the floor. There we go. You can do it. So you put your feet. So you put your feet flat and you sit up straight. Now your eyes are open because when the eyes are open, then the eye of the intellect also opens. Your conscious self-awareness sharpens when your eyes are open. And I'd like you to look at this point of light here, in the center of the picture. So when we look at something, we normally tend to stare. So I don't want you to stare too hard. Just rest your gaze on that tiny point of light. Take a deep breath in and out. Now just relax the whole body, your feet, your legs, the arms, the hands, the back, the stomach, the chest. Relax your shoulders, relax your neck, relax the head, and lastly the face. Now as you gently resting your gaze on that tiny point of light, take your attention inside into the mind. Become aware of the mind that is thinking. Thoughts are flowing into the mind. That's fine. Watch them as they come and then let them flow right past you. Don't let them flow through you. Let them flow past you. Step away from the mind. You can watch it if you're visual, or you can listen if you're auditory. Create some distance between the thinking mind and the watching mind. Be the witness to your thoughts. Now start to educate your thinking. Tell your thoughts, I, the being, am a pure being. Deep inside of me is my original nature of peace. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. My true state My true self is to be peaceful. Peace is deep in my unconscious mind. And now I instruct my mind to dive deep beyond the waves of thoughts, to go beyond the currents of feelings, to dive deeper even still, down into the original state of the self, which is peaceful. I am a peaceful being. Peace is my original state of mind. I have opened the doorway of peace deep inside. Thoughts may come and thoughts may go, but the true deep state of the self is peace. Just as someone who is cleaning up a river and removing the rubbish, in the same way, I sift and sort the rubbish of my own thinking. Thinking that is based on negativity is the rubbish. And I train myself to think pure, positive thoughts. I sift and sort my thoughts and keep them based on pure, positive, peaceful themes. Because I am peaceful. Om Shanti.